Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the program. Time for some 4K for you. It is not a mistake. We are on Saturday on purpose. This may even be our time and schedule going forward, but we have an extremely special guest here. The one, the only, Bill Hunt of the Digital Bits. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. It's good to see you guys.
Glad to have you. Also have Greg here if his internet is permitting.
I'm hoping.
We can hear you at least. I'm not going to
right.
expect you to get on camera with your internet problems right now. So
I don't know what happened just now, but I'm glad to be here with you, Tom and Bill. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, so you guys didn't even get a chance to meet before the show, sadly. So Bill, meet Greg. Greg, meet Bill.
How you doing, Greg?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Greg actually runs his own YouTube channel. He does pretty well. He talks a lot of physical media, and he loves horror films and all that kind of stuff in general. He even has an excellent VHS collection.
Oh, yes.
Way back.
I know it's old hat, but something
No,
special
that's all right, man. Retro's good.
Yeah.
And Bill, you've been running the Digital Bits now for 25 years.
Going on 26.
Going on, I was going to say, but you've actually been in the business for a heck of a lot longer than that. If you want to talk a little bit about that, just to kind of let all those out there who may not know who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so obviously I'm the editor of the Digital Bits, which I started started as an online newsletter right before the DVD format launched in 97. And then actually at the end of 97 became a
covering
website.
laser discs and stuff mostly.
Right.
Stuff like
covering laser discs. And at the time I also wrote for Widescreen Review magazine. And before that I was a video producer. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, studied film. And then I was a video producer and director for about 10 years before I moved out to California and got involved in the film industry and just kind of fell into the bits. Started. It was something that I was interested. I was obviously interested in DVD, and I was following its development even before the format launched. And so once it did launch, I was able to, being in the business, I was able to just call up the studios and say, "Hey, what are you guys working on?" Just because I was interested, and they would tell me everything. There were no secrets then. They would tell me everything. And so I would share it on my little newsletter. And then I started putting this on my, just an Earthlink page way back in the day, right? Earthlink. And Earthlink called up within a month and said, "You're getting way too much traffic." And it turned out that there was nobody else doing it. There was nobody else covering DVD online in terms of a website. There were some discussion forums, but we were really the only people doing it. And so they said, "You need to buy a server and you need to buy a domain name and do this." And so I did that. And like a month later, Netflix called and said, "We'd like to advertise on your website." By the way, Netflix was a brand new company. Nobody knew what Netflix was even. And it just took off. And so I've been doing this for 26 years, working out of my office here in Orange County, California, and never looked back.
Yeah, because, in the early days of internet, I remember while I was still in high school, the first thing I would do when I would get home or if I had a chance to get online at school, I'd be checking, at that time in its infancy still, IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
That would usually have most of the news stuff still collected there.
Yeah.
I would check you guys out, of course, be one of my first stops. And then, of course, you had Ain't It Cool News was one of the earlier ones. But yeah, cool. It was like every day was a thing. And I was constantly checking in and the forums and stuff were great just to talk about what's coming up and what's coming out. And especially in the renaissance of DVD, which was amazing. And I remember when we talked before, just, it's almost weird now looking back 20 plus years
Yeah.
since the renaissance of DVD. Here we are.
Yeah, I know,
A
it's
whole
crazy.
generation later. I
Yeah.
mean, and I don't think people understand how big of a deal DVD might have been. I mean, I'm sure most of our audience, because they are, those kind of tech nerds, but I mean, maybe people listening in the future, just those one or two people out there in the audience. I mean, just kind of give them an idea of how big that boom was in that era of, I mean, especially post 9/11, because I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
recall you talking about before was, people were at home, they had a little bit of disposable income. There was this new
Right.
thing. DVD was a familiar thing because people had gotten used to the CD over the past 2 decades. Go
Exactly
ahead
right.
and kinda give us an idea of where we were at that time.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's funny because when DVD was just starting, as the studios were just kind of wading into it, I remember talking to a lot of studio executives and say, "Well, we just don't know if this is going to be, this is going to be a big thing, or it might be just like Laserdisc was, right?" And I immediately said, "No, this is going to be the hugest thing in the world." And the reason I knew that is because I worked at a Music Land store when CDs dropped, right, for the first time. And I would watch people on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, people would come in and drop like 500 to $1,000 to buy every CD that came out that day because they had, so people had become so familiar with that 5-inch disc format. They loved it. Like CDs were huge, right? So I thought if you can put movies in high quality on that format, that's going to be massive. And sure enough,
Yeah.
and so it was, it was that happened, right? Obviously the development of DVD, as you said, 9/11, because when 9/11 happened, a lot of people who would normally have traveled, taken their kids out to the, the park, or, to different like national parks, gone on vacation to, Disneyland, or gone
Traveling went
overseas or
way
whatever.
down, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Travel went way down. And so all that disposable income that people would have spent on travel, they built home theaters. They bought DVD players and they built home theaters. And then the other thing that happened around that time was obviously the advent of Netflix. So you could rent discs over the mail. And then of course you had the rise of Amazon. And all of a sudden on Amazon, literally any film you wanted was like 2 or 3 mouse clicks in a day away from your mailbox on DVD. So it was, that confluence of events was massive. And then,
Yeah.
for people like you, for us, people our age, the experience I had when I was in high school growing up in North Dakota was, I would see whatever movies showed up on HBO and on Cinemax, right? And then we had like, a couple theaters in our town, but it was, a handful of screens. We got whatever, the major studios were feeding in there. We didn't have any art cinemas or revival cinemas or anything like that. So there was a whole world of movies I didn't even know existed until I got to college and went to film school. And all of a sudden I'm watching like, you know, spaghetti westerns and Fellini and like, it's like all Japanese Kurosawa, Japanese samurai cinema, and all this whole world of movies that I never knew existed. And then DVD made those movies accessible to everybody. And so it was a big deal. DVD was a big deal.
Yeah, and I think Lester brings up a good point here because Laserdisc, I think, felt like people had kind of a, I don't know about that kind of feeling with it. Like they're like, "There's a lot of stuff I got to flip the disc. That's a big bulky
Right.
disc. I just got rid of my record collection. I don't
Yeah.
Right.
that.
Right.
Sure, the quality's great, the sound's great, but if I want to watch Star Wars, I gotta flip it twice and put on another
Right.
disc, and and I think you're right. Like the versatility of DVD. I mean, and that's kind of what the V stands for. Basically, most people think it stands for video, but the original V in DVD was digital versatile disc.
Correct. Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
applications to it, and I think that that can be also applied to the fact that you could do so much. And you're right, like that Renaissance was also combined with, and this is kind of getting us to our modern discussion of today, combined with the advent of the technology, right? Like the menu system that they were working on, all the fancy stuff.
Right.
I remember getting the Matrix, and I'm sure I read it about on the bits and reading all the forums and stuff. People are, I can't get the Matrix to play, like
Right. Right.
because they were
Exactly.
having all the issues with all the players not being up to date. And that was, it may have seemed frustrating at the time, but looking back at it, it's like I miss that. I miss not knowing what the next cool thing is we were going to get coming out of these, and the Easter eggs and all the fun stuff that these
And
and
just the amount of money that the studios
oh
spent on
god.
special features, right? Like they would really go all out and load those discs up with extras and amazing. Like an entire generation of documentary filmmakers came out of DVD production, right? Because they were
Oh yeah,
making all
Robert
the
and all
behind
those
the
guys.
scenes
Yeah,
content. Yeah. And it was extraordinary, the stuff we were getting. I mean, every movie was loaded with great content. And and then
absolutely.
the quality on DVD was better than Laserdisc and VHS, right? And it was the first format to really take advantage of widescreen TVs. So prior to high def, for those kids who are too young, prior to high def TVs, which are widescreen, we had widescreen TVs, but they were analog. They weren't, it wasn't necessarily digital, but you could make stuff anamorphic so that it would blow up and look good on those
They would
TVs.
utilize all of the data you could use on
Exactly.
the. And
Exactly.
that's the thing is some people may not even realize, even though Laserdisc was a big old disc, it was actually analog, right? Like, I mean, people
Right.
don't realize that it wasn't
Yeah.
technically digital like DVD. So DVD was technically the first digital video format, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. And it was analog, and it was also, when they would letterbox, but they couldn't do anamorphic. So then you're literally looking at a square image with, a rectangle in the middle, and it was just about as low resolution as you could get,
Anyone who
right?
throws in an old DVD knows exactly that. Like when you get one of those
Exactly
old,
right.
old DVDs, it's just a straight rip of the laser disc 9 times out of 10. So
Exactly.
let's get into the modern age, because that's what I think the big difference between then and now is. A lot of the folks who were innovating discs
Mhm.
and the menu systems and getting all those special features and getting a lot. And it's funny, we didn't even bring this part up. You got a lot of those older filmmakers got their blood running again, and some of these guys who had been
Sure.
retired for a couple of years were like, you know what, I'm gonna make another movie, or I'm gonna make a
Yeah.
sequel to this.
Yeah.
And I think that really reinvigorated the industry in a way that nobody ever thought was possible. But now we've hit the point where a lot of those people are gone from the studio, sadly. Like, and we've had this talk with Robert, and it's really sad that they don't have the people there who are wanting to innovate, because Blu-ray and 4K, I think, have infinitely more possibilities that they could have done,
Yeah.
with the menu systems and all the fun stuff that they
Yep.
could have done, and and gathering up all these features. I mean, you can have a treasure trove of features because the discs are massive in size, and I mean, because a lot of this stuff is on video and stuff like that, so it doesn't have to be in HD. But even that, we can upgrade some of these older documentaries and stuff
Mhm.
like that into HD as well. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's the saddest part about the industry right now, besides just the lack of interest from the studios, is that they don't
Well,
have the people there to innovate anymore, I
yeah,
think.
that's exactly right. I mean, what people need to realize is about 90% of the people who were there during the golden age of DVD in the late 90s and early aughts, who really built that business, they're all gone. They are the retired, or were downsized, or they're just otherwise gone. And so there are still a few left. There are not too many, but there are still a few left. But the people that are there now, it's not that they don't want to innovate. It's just that they've all been hired to to innovate in the digital side, in the streaming side. Like, that's where the mindset is now. It For a long time, people sort of thought, well, discs aren't the future, digital is going to be the future, right? So that's where we all want to have all the marbles over there. The problem with that is you can't make a lot of money on digital, and I think the studios have now learned that, right? So first of all, you're having setting up all the streaming infrastructure and all the digital infrastructure you need is very expensive. Second of all, you've got, they're overspending on the content, right? So they're spending huge amounts of money to create content, which is cool, except that, that obviously prevents you from making a profit. And then when it comes to digital sales, the problem is, so let's say I'm a movie enthusiast, and I like great quality, and I have lots of favorite movies. I will, if you say, okay, here's your favorite movie, and it's in 4K, but it's not available on disc. It's never going to be available on disc. It's only on digital. I might go, okay, I'll buy the digital version for 14.99, let's call it. But guess what? I'll never buy that movie again. Whereas if you had sold it to me on disc, I might have spent $50 on that version. And guess what? 5, 6, 7 years from now, when there's an even better, if somebody finds an even better copy of the negative, or a better restoration is
Or an
possible,
unrated cut or something like
or an
that.
unrated cut, or there's
Yeah.
new material
Yeah.
that's uncovered, or you get a great documentary maker to come do new features, and then you do a whole new package and you add swag to it and you make it a beautiful tactile experience. I might even buy it again for $50. Right. But if you move all those customers over to digital, 14.99, and they're out, and they'll never buy it again. And that, all of a sudden, you've cut off a really valuable revenue stream for the studio, even as you're losing money on setting up your digital infrastructure, even as you're overspending on content. And the problem with that is there, especially if you think about just the United States alone, there are only about 126 million TV households in the US, right? That's it. That number's not growing. It's kind of a cap right now. So, and that's been that way for a long time. So, that 125, that's your ceiling, but not everybody is going to subscribe to all the streaming services. People
Right.
typically have a budget for 3 or 4 maybe, and that's about it. So if you've got 10, 15 streaming services, that means not only do you not have all of those consumers, you have just a tiny slice of those consumers. And what we've seen now is that people, because they churn, right? If Netflix has got the stuff I want to watch this month, I'll subscribe this month, but then I'll turn it off. And if Apple TV's got the stuff I want next month, I'll turn that. So there's this constant turnover. So there's really kind of a cap in terms of the amount of money you can make on streaming. And guys like us had been telling the studios this all along,
right?
But they didn't buy it. They didn't believe it, and they really drank the Kool-Aid because the Wall Street guys were like, to the studio executives, hey, you guys got to have your streaming operation, or you can't even, you're not even going to be a part of the 21st century if you don't have your streaming operation. But it's like, how are you going to make money?
Yeah, you hit some very important points there. First of all, like, I mean, when it comes to the distribution, the creation of this stuff, like back in the DVD age, even the straight to video movies could make a lot of money for the studios.
Yeah.
And if they didn't necessarily make the money in the theaters, they always knew that the money was there on the DVD end. And you're right. And this, I think, created a false sense of like a safety net for the studios. And you're right. When they come in and they're sitting there watching Netflix going, well, we want some of that money that they're paying us, not thinking for a moment that you guys are making that money because they have everything in one place. And this was a point, Andre, I wish he wanted to be here today and he apologized, but he made this point, and I think very poignantly, and I think you'll agree with this. I think we all looked at the streaming wars the wrong way, in a sense that we looked at it as, all these different companies competing with each other. He goes, it was the next format war. And I think we all kind of knew that when we had talked to you last, Bill, years ago.
Yeah.
And he was 100% right. He goes, instead now of just having two competing formats, every studio is throwing their own format into the game. And that's kind of what you have with these streaming services. And I've pointed out what you are too. And first of all, you're not owning any of this stuff you buy on digital. It's basically a long-term lease. And that bomb's going to blow up sooner or later. I mean, people are already starting to notice that, but there's going to be a larger swath of people that are going to be like, wait a minute here. I paid $25 for that and you just took it away from me. That doesn't compute with me.
Well,
so that's going to be a problem too.
The analogy, it's a good analogy that it's like a format war. The other way to think about it would have been, look, digital could be great is if you had 1 or 2 services and you could log on to those 1 or 2 services and literally any film you wanted to find was there.
Right.
Because that's the advantage of Amazon. That's one of the reasons Amazon was so great for physical media, because literally anything that was available you could get on Amazon. And look, the digital would be wonderfully convenient as a rental thing if you could just like random movie off the top of your head and you go look and there it is and you can watch it like instantly. That'd be great. But that's, as we know, that's not how it is. Instead, we've got, a dozen different streaming services and they're all competing with each other and they all have their exclusive content. And the crazier thing to me is look at Disney, like Disney Plus, right? So Disney's got a massive library of Fox content and a massive library of Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures and their own their own live action content, not in addition to the animation stuff. How much of that is on Disney Plus? Almost none of it. So if you buy Disney Plus, if I buy Disney Plus and I can't watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and I can't watch Patton or I can't watch Tombstone or I can't watch the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes or any of those old like Disney classics and stuff. Why isn't that stuff on Disney Plus?
You're right. The average consumer would expect that, right? Now, maybe the average consumer may not know that Touchstone or Hollywood Pictures was a part of Disney. That may be fair. But Bob Iger himself set up that expectation when he came out and said, all of our stuff is going to be available always on Disney Plus. And then they learned the other point you just made, and that was that the overhead cost of keeping up these digital streaming services is a lot more than it costs to just produce discs. And that's the thing that that I think
Mhm.
that they didn't realize when they went from creating videotapes, which cost, back in the day, they're a little bit more expensive to produce compared to discs, which are literally, you can produce a disc now for probably under $1
Yeah.
between the
Yeah.
entire thing. Like from the disc to the cover to whatever, as long as you're not doing anything elaborate.
Right.
I mean, you can produce a disc for $1 at least, if not less. So what is their excuse? That's what we can't understand. And it's like, is
Yeah.
somebody not informing them that this is important? I know you guys are, but we need people within the studio. And I think we've noticed some change in the wind a little bit because we're finally getting some classics out of there. But like going to the other point, you just brought up like Disney's classic catalog. We're finally getting some of James Cameron's movies. Now those have an asterisk next to them
Yeah.
because they can you have to have James Cameron around to do this. Now you're somebody who's been breaking this news for years. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to touch a little bit on that and then just kind of bounce off of that on just how the studios kind of view these things and the problems that they come into and run into when it comes to dealing with somebody like James Cameron in comparison to when they can just put this stuff out. There's no
Right.
excuse otherwise.
Right. Well, the Cameron thing is interesting. The Cameron situation is interesting because back in, I think it was 2012, I caught wind that 20th Century Fox at the time was getting ready. They were getting ready to release The Abyss and True Lies on Blu-ray. And I know this for a fact. I saw elements. I saw, like, I was at Fox. I saw like some of the work that they'd done. Like, it's like, I know for a fact it was happening. And then it never came out, and I could never get a straight answer from the studio as to why that happened. When I would ask the studio, they would say, well, and I, like, by the way, asked the head of 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, like, why isn't this coming? And he would say, well, you got to ask James Cameron. And so then I would ask James Cameron, and there was an event, there was an industry conference at which James Cameron and the head of 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment was on stage together. And at the Q&A, I said, so what's up with Abyss and True Lies on Blu-ray? And the Fox guy said, ask him. And James smiled and pointed to the Fox guy and said, ask him. And it just never happened. And I think, so what I've been able to come up with, what I've been able to kind of find out, there was some kind of a dispute happening between the two of them. And I think it was that the existing transfers of those two films were HD. They'd been done for, I think I think Abyss was on DVHS. So there were existing HD transfers of those two films.
For
But at the
cable and other
time,
things too, yeah.
exactly right. But at the time, 4K was just starting to be a thing, right? 2012, 2014, 4K transfers were just starting to be a thing. And I think Cameron wanted a new 4K transfer for each of those, and I think Fox didn't want to pay for it. And so I think so Cameron just never approved the release. But so then you jump ahead to, over the years, then there's been little hints that the new 4K scans of those films have been done. And then earlier this year in March, I was at an event at Lightstorm for the release of Avatar: The Way of Water. And I had an opportunity to ask John Landau, so what's up with Abyss, True Lies, Titanic on
And this was your
on
video
4K?
that you guys may have seen go around on Twitter that
Yeah,
you did. Yep.
I shot video, and I asked him on camera, like, so what's up? And he said, yep, they're coming. I said, are they come? So what? They might be out this year. They're coming, right? And he Abyss, True Lies, Titanic. And as I shared that on social media, which caused a stir, right? And in fact, I was able to confirm that there are, that they were coming. Just recently, Cameron at a screening in LA of The Abyss confirmed, yes, they're coming. We've worked on them. They're coming. Obviously now Titanic has been announced for release on 4K on December 5th. So that for sure is coming to 4K. And I can tell you, because I'm talking regularly with people that are actually working on these titles, that The Abyss is coming, True Lies is coming, and also Aliens is coming. They're all three of those are coming to 4K. And there should be a Blu-ray option because obviously Abyss and True Lies were never even on Blu-ray.
Right.
Aliens made it to Blu-ray, but Abyss and True Lies didn't. And what I can tell you is that Abyss and True Lies, Abyss and Aliens will both include both versions of the film. All three of those titles should be on 100 gig discs, so they should be optimized for the highest video and audio quality. And it looks like Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos for all three titles. Now, as to when they're going to come out, they're shooting for this year, before the end of the year. it's possible because these things take time to do, and Cameron is being very picky about, like, okay, they've got to be right. He's being very stingy in terms of approving. So that process may bump them into a little bit early next year. But they're coming. They're for sure coming. Like 100%, they're coming. And in fact, Disney, sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks, Disney should be announcing, and we'll see what the street date is, but Disney should be announcing them within the next month or two.
Right.
And so at least this year for sure, Titanic on 4K disc, 4K digital, and obviously that was available on Blu-ray before. And then those other 3 films are coming. So
cool.
That's at least the good news, and it'll be great when they come out, because then I won't have to talk about it anymore.
Now, were you at that showing where they actually showed footage from the 4K transfers where people were talking about that, or no?
There was a screening of The Abyss. It turns out it wasn't actually 4K; it was a 2K
Okay.
DI. But
Because I was wondering about that, because I know some people were saying that it's got a lot of DNR on it or something like that. Yeah, I was curious if you saw that. So
I don't think that was the new 4K master. And by the way, I can tell you that so Titanic, so when Titanic, obviously they did a big remaster and they put it back into theaters, and when they do 3D, when they did the 3D, they scrubbed that film of grain, right? So that makes it easier to post produce the 3D look. And the same thing happened with T2, right? They scrubbed it of grain. They did the 3D post conversion and put it out into 3D theaters. And unfortunately, that 3D master is the one that got used by Studio Canal to put out the 4K disc, which is why that looks so awful. And that wasn't like Lightstorm was upset about that. But Studio Canal's rationale was, well, James Cameron approved this. And it's like, well, yeah, he approved it for 3D, not for 4K, right? But what I'm told by people who have seen all 3 of these, Titanic, True Lies, Abyss, Aliens, is that they look great. Like they've actually got grain. They've been properly remastered to look good. So they've been specifically remastered for 4K. So they should look really good.
yeah, and hopefully he'll go back or at least do something with T2, because, and again, we can't blame him for that, because
Yeah.
that re-release they did, that was all Studio Canal and
Well,
Lionsgate.
what I can tell you is next year is I can't remember what the year is, what the anniversary, but the original Terminator celebrates an anniversary next year.
Next year, yep.
And so,
And isn't it True Lies anniversary next year? Or is that
it might be. It might be, which
can't remember if that was 94 or 95, but yeah, it was one of those years.
I think 94. I think you're right, which makes sense that then the True Lies is coming out soon here. But my understanding is, and I can't say this for sure, but my understanding is that after this wave of titles comes out, that Lightstorm is next going to turn its attention to the original Terminator and a new 4K of T2. So
I had heard some rumors about the first one, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
That'd be great.
And yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Aliens takes a little longer, because I'll bet if Disney does it right, what they'll do is they'll end up doing Alien 3 and 4 at the same time and just give us a 4K box set for once.
I don't know. I don't know.
It'd be nice, but
it would be nice, but I don't think Disney's doesn't think like that anymore.
Box sets, I know. Well, speaking of that, because they have kind of changed their tune a little bit on home media, haven't they, recently? Especially considering there was a point where, they were not releasing hardly anything on disc anymore. Yeah. Australia had heard the news that Disney wasn't going to be distributing any discs down there anymore after Guardians of the Galaxy 3, to finally start seeing, Bob Iger himself say something about it, and Disney seemingly embrace 4K a little bit more. What's your feelings on that, or do you know anything about that?
They released Prey in 4K, right? They went back and released Snow White and Cinderella, I believe.
Which looked great, yeah.
Yeah, and they went back and actually did those transfers right. They didn't scrub them of grain like they have done on the previous animated titles. So those actually look great in 4K. And obviously they're doing some Disney Plus streaming shows in 4K. I mean, my understanding is they're going to continue doing those streaming series in 4K next year. The question is, and obviously these Cameron films, right? Now, I'm hoping and I'm convinced that they're gonna sell a ton of copies of all these, because of course they are, right? So I'm hoping they go, oh shit, this is what we should be doing from now on, right? My fear is they're going to look at the Best Buy news, Best Buy getting out of physical media, and going, ooh, maybe we should, I don't know, So it's still, the jury's still not completely in on that. We will hopefully Disney will get the right message and they'll keep rocking and rolling.
Well, and we'll get into this Best Buy news here next because, and I brought up the Variety report for a reason because I think it's nice that they actually gave you credit in this.
Yeah.
In this report.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in just a second because John Coppola,
Sure.
who's a member, if you guys want to ask a question, if you want to be sure to get it in right away, send us a super chat. We'll get in. If we have time at the end, we'll try and grab some questions from the audience otherwise.
Absolutely.
But members and super chats will definitely get in here. John Coppola says or asks, where is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and The Right Stuff on 4K? Now, I believe Disney would own the rights to Right Stuff now, wouldn't they? Because I think that's
No.
Fox.
No,
Who's
no.
that?
So,
who did that one?
No, that's Warner Brothers. That's Warner
Was
Brothers.
it Warner Brothers? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So Warner Brothers owns the rights to that. And by the way, the 40th anniversary, I think, of The Right Stuff was just last week. So that's
I can't
Warner
believe
Brothers
they didn't
title.
get one out in their 100-year anniversary on top of that. What the heck?
I can't either. It's kind of inexplicable. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is Disney. And there is a new restoration of that. There is a recent restoration. I think a few years ago they did a brand new restoration. Why that's not out on 4K, I don't know. I'm hoping that, I spend a lot of time trying to convince Warner Brothers and Disney to release more of their catalog in 4K, that they should be a little more adventurous. And I'm hoping, like, for example, a Disney executive asked me a few weeks ago for a list of titles that I thought people would be very excited to own in 4K. And I provided them a list of like 50 titles. I said, like, here's an A list of 25 and here's a B list of like 25 that are kind of deeper cuts, but cult titles, but that still, all of those titles would
tend to
sell really well
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And rest assured that every single film you're thinking of that you would want to be on those lists was on those lists. And they took it, and I'm hoping they consider it, take it serious, and start, doing some of those. We'll see. It's just, it's the studios, Warner Brothers less so, but particularly Disney, they're in a weird place right now with regard to this stuff. And so I'm hoping we can get them to look, for example, Paramount for years just didn't seem to know what to do with its catalog. And then about 5-6 years ago, they got a brand new team in to handle the catalog stuff. And they're kicking butt now, other than the weird, occasional mistake that
they get some anomalies, but I'll give them credit. They've really stepped it up in getting just a lot of stuff out there. They're not just
licensing title, and also not just releasing them themselves, but licensing titles to Imprint and various companies. So
Kino Lorber and everybody. Yeah, they're not real picky about that. And their transfers have been getting better. They've had some snafus. I know Kitty Cam always works to get some nod of attention.
Charlie, this is Charlie.
Aw. I'm surprised mine hasn't been up here bugging me, but he just had his supper, so he's probably sleeping.
Of course.
But let's talk about this real quick, because this has been something that I think I'm not even quite sure how to feel about. And I talked to you about it in the background a little bit. I've talked to Greg about it in the background quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Best Buy to end DVD and Blu-ray sales. And in fact, what's funny is when I read your report, like the day after that or the day of, I can't remember which. I went in to pick up a movie because I was having some issues with their shipping problems. I had to go pick up Snow White and I had to go pick up Wicker Man because they were just having some issues with their pre-order problems.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother ball game. But anyway, the first time I said something about it, the guy had no clue what I was talking about. When I went to pick up the Wicker Man, the guy at the counter told me about it. So clearly this is something that had resonated through the company, or they've been told from their higher ups. Yeah. So tell us how you came to this information, and congratulations for making all the major news outlets with this scoop.
Big time.
Yeah. Because here's the thing of it is I, in terms of what I post on the website, there's what I post on the website, and then there's the stuff I hear about and that I know about. And it's like the tip of the iceberg and the whole rest of the iceberg, right? There's a lot of things that I hear about, and I'm told in confidence that I can't talk about in public. But so I talk to the studio people almost every day. I talk to people at the various studios, and I get messages from them and phone calls and texts and all that. And I think it was Wednesday night. I think it was Wednesday night of that week. I started hearing from some friends who work at a couple of the different studios saying, "Oh my God, we just had a meeting with Best Buy because we were planning our Steelbook exclusives for next year, and they told us they're getting out. They're totally getting out of the physical media business." And like, This is you should see if you can confirm this, because they've said 100% we're getting out. And so I was quickly able to send out kind of an email to various studios that I know deal with Best Buy, and they all, like, very quickly, within 10 minutes, people were getting back to me going, yeah, we've just heard this too. We've absolutely heard this too. So I wrote up a story and posted it, and that Thursday it just exploded. It just went everywhere, obviously, because it's huge news. But all the major, like, press stuff picked it up. We got so much traffic that the site started to bog down. It was it was struggling with the amount of traffic that we were getting. And then, sure enough, the next day, all the major trades, the video, Variety and Media Play News and stuff, they all confirmed, and Best Buy issued a statement saying it was true. And yeah, it was crazy. But it was a pretty intense 24 hours, because it was late in the day on Thursday when I'd heard this, and it's like, oh my God, who can I contact really quick at some of the other studios who can, provide a second and third confirmation? And turned out everybody, like, when they realized I knew, everybody wanted to talk about it. So I had no trouble confirming it. Everybody wanted to talk about it. And,
Yeah, because this was kind of a blow in a sense that I think, and I really want to get your take on this, because this is kind of what we talked about in private a little bit. A lot of people thought, well, no, this is it. This is the final nail in the
Right.
physical media coffin. We're
Yeah.
done. This is
No.
it. We're done. So, I mean, but I think that, and I kind of had that, I didn't have the knee-jerk reaction at first going, well, this is the death of physical media. My knee-jerk reaction was, this is the dumbest thing Best Buy could have ever done, but hell, they haven't
Yeah.
paid attention to physical media in years. So I think you
Exactly.
and I were kind of thinking the same thing, and you had came to the same conclusion. So kind of give us your take on what you think this is going to
Yeah.
signal for the
Will it-
industry. I mean,
will
it
it-
doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the day.
Right. I mean, and the question is, it might matter to the studios, right? Because they might go, oh,
Mhm.
well, we've lost a retail partner. That's a problem for us. But so it turns out that Best Buy never really had that big a percentage of the market. In fact, I'd have to look up the exact number, but it turned out that the
I think it's like
percentage of
4%.
it's like 4%. Yeah, of all physical media sales was Best Buy. It's like nothing. Whereas Walmart's is huge. Walmart is like 40%. So for Best Buy, Best Buy, obviously they had a lot of kind of sexy exclusives, because they'd get all these Steelbook exclusives and things. But they really didn't have a very large percentage of the market. And so for Best Buy Best Buy has been kind of not doing physical media very much for years. I mean, I'm sure all three of you, and everybody watching this, has had the experience where you walk into a Best Buy store and every week the section of discs is smaller and smaller, and
Or it's just plain empty.
yeah, plain
It's
empty. And they've got exclusives, and you go up to ask for them, and they go, I'll have to go check the back.
Yeah,
We
that's
have
actually
that, Jim. Yeah, that's usually what you get. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got a comment because I did a video too on this, and I just got a comment where the guy said, I went into Best Buy to pick up a new release, and I asked the guy, because it wasn't out on the shelf. So he's like, hey, this movie's out. Can I get it? And the guy told him, no, you can't get it. We're not stocking it right now. So he said he went out to his car, ordered it online, and in 5 minutes, they pinged him back and said it's ready to pick up right there at the store. He went right in, and he picked it up right from the manager.
Right.
So
I
it's
had
like,
somebody, similar thing on X, where they said that they had asked, like I did, like the whole gym joke I just did. They hadn't brought them out yet. They just had them sitting in the back, because it's not a priority to them. It's not something to where, like,
Yeah.
Walmart, I used to sit there and, like, kind of give a little nostalgia bug again. The Tuesday of release day was like, it's Tuesday, it's DVD
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like, we would get midnight on Monday nights, we'd run to Walmart, get whatever they got, and then whatever they
Right.
didn't have, we'd jump to Best Buy and get what they got, and
Yep.
whatever they didn't have.
And by the way, I looked up the numbers. So in terms of physical brick and mortar stores, sales of DVD sales, percentage of DVD sales, Walmart commands 45% of the market. Amazon has 18, Target has 6, Best Buy only has 4. Best Buy only has 4%. So it's a negligible number. But from the studio standpoint, the reason it's significant is because apparently what Best Buy would do is, let's say if you're Disney and you wanted to release a certain, you have a certain title you're going to release.
This is what I wanted to get to, yeah.
And you want to release it on you want to do Steelbook, right? So you're going to do a Best Buy exclusive Steelbook. Well, Best Buy guarantees we will buy every single one of those Steelbooks that you make for us. We'll get it as an exclusive, and we'll buy every single one, and you don't have to worry about returns. So you'll never have to worry about, some of these didn't sell. We're going to sell them back. We're going to give them back to you. And that was guaranteed revenue for the studio that they knew they were going to get. And guaranteed revenue up front gives them a lot of confidence in saying, oh, well, maybe then I guess we'll release this title on 4K or whatever. So that going away from Best Buy might be problematic in terms of from the studio side. But the thing is, I'm already hearing that several studios now who do steelbooks are actually moving those exclusives to Walmart and Amazon. And so, frankly, I think this shouldn't really make any difference at all.
And actually, that segues nicely into the whole Walmart taking over SDS conversation, because this is something we haven't really talked about here yet. And I wanted to get your perspective on this, because for those who don't know what this is all about, I brought the story up here just a second ago. Walmart is looking at buying SDS. What is SDS? SDS is a service that works for some of the studios. I think Warner Brothers.
It's called Studio Distribution Services.
Thank you.
And it was created by Warner Brothers and Universal.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of the companies that are involved in this. So basically, I was going to say, I probably have a disc here that has it on the back.
Yeah.
But basically, either way, you look at the back of your disc, it has this little SDS symbol on it. So go ahead and explain what's going on there and where basically that could be where this is headed.
Yeah, it could be. Basically, Studio Distribution Services is a company that Warner Brothers and Universal created to handle all of their disc production and distribution, right? So they teamed up and they said, okay, this company they'll handle all the authoring, all the compression, all the replication, all the distribution, all the packaging. They'll just do all that stuff in-house. And that model worked so successfully that like Shout Factory works with them. I think Lionsgate works with them. Several different studios now, smaller studios, have joined in on that. And what Walmart would like to do is Walmart would like to either buy the company or buy in somehow, so that SDS will handle all of the distribution for their DVD, Blu-ray, 4K media sales. So in other words, when you go to Walmart and buy a disc, it'll Studio Distribution Services will handle all of that from then on out. And that would mean that Walmart gets a lot more efficient at selling discs. And they make more money, and it would be good for them to do. And it would, I think, be good for consumers too, because it would, fans of guys who want to buy these discs, the customer service will get more reliable, shipping will get more reliable, all that kind of thing. So that's a thing that might happen. Now this was the summer that Walmart was looking at that. I haven't heard anything since. So it remains to be seen, but I think it would not be a bad thing, especially since they command most of the market. 45% of the market is huge.
Yeah. And let's be clear, because I got some numbers here in the background that I had pulled up just for last year. I mean, alone. And last year they did almost $500 million in sales, if my numbers are correct, on disc. I mean, you had stuff like Spider-Man No Way Home, Top Gun taking the top spots for discs, selling 44 million and 46 million worth alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. These studios cannot be ignoring that kind of money. Right. And I think you're right. I think if this goes through, I think Walmart sees this as a very good partnership, to where they can not only streamline their distribution services, like you were saying, but also, like you were saying before, then they know they're going to be set up. Well, we're going to get those exclusive steelbooks. Right. We're going to get those fancy deals. And also then they'll be the distribution partners for all the other companies that are still doing any kind of physical media still.
That's exactly right.
Part of this. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it doesn't mean we're going to necessarily get bigger sections at Walmart, but I'm sure it'll be a regional thing. We'll probably get some testing sites. But the fact that they're interested in this tells me that Walmart is still interested in physical media, because, as you said, they command almost half the market still as far as sales.
I think that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm surprised they sell more than Amazon, to be honest with you.
Look, people are still buying discs, and it'll surprise people to know that DVD is still overwhelmingly the biggest seller, not only in this country, but all around the world. And Blu-ray is I think Blu-ray is like 40 to 50%. And then, 4K is a smaller
starting to grow a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Starting to grow a little bit, but it's still there's no doubt that the mainstream consumer has moved to digital, right? And what digital basically did was replace video rental stores like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. But they're still selling a lot of discs, and it's I've heard people at the studios say that, well, it's too bad that the US isn't a collector's market like Japan is, right? But I think it is, actually. And I think it could be even more of a collector's market if the studios actually bothered to cater to the market. If the studios actually catered to the collector's market, spoke to the collector, created content, find out what it is that collectors and fans of this stuff want, and actually really catered to them and communicated with them and kind of worked with them, created a special store for them and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a huge market the market could, I think, get bigger than it is now if everybody really has that visionary thought that, hey, we're back to kind of Laserdisc days, and Laserdisc days was all about you find out what the fans and the collectors want, and you cater right to that market. And I think there's, I think potentially physical media could have a lot of years left. I think at least through the end of the decade, we could see those businesses being very reliable. And it's like, obviously all of us here are fans, and it's like my interest is certainly in trying to make that happen, because I love discs. I love 4K discs, and I can tell by looking at the pictures behind you, each of you. Tom, look at your wall there, and Greg, I can see your picture. You've got discs behind you too.
Portion,
that's my super small corner.
Look, as you brought up before, how many times have I bought one single movie or so on disc? It's insane. So, like you said, we're more than willing to, but you got to make it worth it, right? You got to
make it
some effort into it, right? You got to make it something like this, to where, and this is another thing I wanted to get on too, because this was, Anchor Bay back in the day,
right?
Back then we had maybe one or two boutique companies compared to now, where this is one thing I will say, I don't know if you agree or not, but I feel like we're kind of at a renaissance right now of boutique companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, the more well-known would be like Shout and Arrow, of course, but you've got Synapse, you've got Vinegar Syndrome, you've got all these great companies pulling out these lesser known films, movies that never would have gotten noticed before, are getting full on 4K packaging.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a big deal. I love it when I open up my Vinegar Syndrome packages and I get, like, last year when I think Greg and I both agreed one of the best transfers of last year was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yep.
It looked beautiful. It was one of the most packed things you could ever find as far as special features. So these companies are doing it. I think we are. Do you agree with that we're in a bit of a renaissance with companies?
100%. And it kind of all started with Criterion, right? And now there are lots of Criterion-like companies for some catering to specific genres and things. And there's like 2 to 3 dozen great indie labels now that are kicking butt with Blu-ray and 4K. And it's great. It seems like there's room for every one of them because they're doing something specific that some fan out there is like, oh, I've got to have that. And it's great to see. And I long may it continue as far as I'm concerned.
So that's interesting, because like we're sitting here talking about these boutique labels and how they're basically competing against each other, but they're all helping out the fans. And we're like, these streaming services, like you mentioned earlier, they don't care at all. They're just determined just to put everything out there and take things away and stuff. It's so weird.
That's a really good observation, because here's the thing. If you're a fan of Criterion, you're probably also a fan of Shout Factory. You're probably also a fan of Kino Lorber Studio Classics, because all of those companies together are creating this culture of these great boutique titles. And so each of them, they're not I don't see that they're competing against each other. They're really all growing that market together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of them are, I hate to say this, but they're kind of getting their butt kicked by some of the foreign guys. You see something like this Turbine release of the Frighteners. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, they're making us look bad over here.
The Turbine thing.
Just an example of, here's a great release from Vinegar Syndrome, though.
Yeah,
go ahead and continue your thought while I'm showing.
Well, the Turbine thing is interesting, because Turbine actually paid for that transfer and remaster. And so they've got exclusive rights to it for 3 years. So after 3 years, that will revert back to Universal, and then either Universal can do their own version, or they could license it to like Arrow or somebody. But Turbine is doing amazing work. How about that Coke, which is now Play On, that Coke Dune box set, which was
I got it sitting over there.
Yeah, it's the best thing I've ever seen.
I brought that out on Greg's show, because Greg does a weekly physical media show where we talk about what we watch for the week.
Yeah.
I think I made everybody in the audience cream. They were just we're done. Just end the show. I don't think anybody can compete with that after
you sold it too.
That box set, the Spice Diver cut, Blu-ray in that set alone is like the greatest thing. I would have bought that set just for that. I mean,
Now
it's
that's
so
getting a non-fan edition, isn't that getting released that way?
yes, it is. So there was that super ultimate box set that came in the plexiglass, like, case and all that jazz. They are releasing it. I think it got pushed back to March, but they are releasing it on like a more kind of a wide release version without all the swag, without all the deluxe packaging, but all the movie discs and the soundtrack, right? So yeah, there it is right there. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love that.
Somebody ended up buying that after he showed it. He's like, I dropped $250 on that, and I don't regret one bit of it.
Exactly.
I start tearing into this. We'll be here for a few minutes because there is so much.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're right. Like things like this, America just doesn't get, but we get close in some respects. But I mean,
Yeah,
this is the kind of
some
thing that
things.
gets us excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they see the genius of Coke is they they do, you can get a hold of it if you really want it. You can find a way, and they are now doing a mass market version that it'll be on Amazon, UK, Amazon DE. And you'll be able to import it here in the States. And it's just you need an all region Blu-ray player, obviously, and they're a 4K player, but if you've got that, oh my God, it's amazing. That set. That's like that to me, that set's like the Alien quadrilogy or the Alien anthology or the Great Blade Runner, box set we got years ago.
This is just for one movie.
I know. I know.
I mean, here in the US, the equivalent to this, I think the closest we've got would have to be that amazing Columbia Ghostbuster set in the Trap, which was limited.
Right.
It was one of the only ones I can think of that was really remotely close.
Right, which, by the way, which was amazing, and which was also so limited that people who even thought they pre-ordered didn't get it. Like that, I don't understand. It's like, why, if you're Sony, why don't you make more copies of that?
Exactly.
You'll sell them. You could make 5,000-10,000 more copies of that, and I think they'd sell every one of them. And I don't understand why they don't.
Well, one of my people inside did tell me there was an issue because Canada's version didn't actually get the light up part. So there was something to do with that, and it was so that when they were done with them, they were done with them. Now, what I don't understand is they didn't just release a disc-only version of that set.
Exactly.
That's what confuses me.
Here's what
I can understand the limited edition version of it, but yeah,
take the discs-only version and make a steelbook box set. Like, you'd sell a ton of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the thing. It's like, if you're as a studio, if you want to make money on physical media, there is money to be made. I don't like, that's the crazy thing to me is like Rob Burnett and I talk all the time. It's like, if he and I, like, if went to Disney and said, just hire us to run this department, we'd be making them so much money.
Right.
We'd be making them so much money. It's ridiculous because we know the process. We know people who do all the work. I mean, it's like, if you want to make money at physical media, there's a way to do it right now. Problem is the people making these decisions at some of the studios don't know any of that. And so it's like, they don't even know what they don't know to a certain extent. I mean, you're talking about some of these studios where, the people were hired specifically to be focused on digital. And maybe their previous job was like, they were an executive at 3M or whatever. They're not they don't even, if you said, hey, what about this film? They would go, do we own that? I don't know. Do we own that? they don't know film. They don't know the catalog of the studio that they work for. Like, it's weird. It's a weird time right now where you've got, like, in some places, you just have kind of the wrong people in charge of this stuff. Cause all three of us sitting here, and every single person listening to this knows that they could be making a lot of money on physical media if they just played their cards right.
And you're right. I'm not saying they have to necessarily hire us. What they could be doing is using because there is a growing home media community on YouTube, right? Greg was one of the first people I discovered as part of that community, and it has grown existentially ever since then. You've got quite a few guys that are coming in and they're becoming a part of this. I don't see why the studios are not using us as QC, because you could be sending all of us, including, you guys, because like get it early enough and go, well, we can tell right away. We'll know when something's wrong.
Yep.
Right. We'll be like, hey, by the way, at this point, here's your list.
Right. By the way, like all of these studios at one point had they had their own in-house QC people who were, by the way, fans of these
do it
films.
For free.
I know.
Yeah.
And the people they used to have, like, were in-house. They were fans of these films. They knew these films. They were the last line of defense, and they did a great job. Right. And now they just outsource all the QC. And you're right. It's like if they could have a team of people who are super fans of these films, who know these films, who could do this stuff. And, you know, I mean, the problem is they just don't think like that. And it's a shame because there really is, it really just drives me crazy. It's like, are you in the business of making money or what? Because if you're in the business of making money, it's not hard to make money on physical media. You just have to like care and like know how, you know?
Well, and the sad part is this is like just with about any one of these reporting kind of, you know, type of businesses, of course, more people are interested when there's some sort of drama or something goes wrong. But I'll tell you what, nothing I hate more, nothing bothers me more in reporting like this. I can report all day long about the problems with, you know, whatever Disney issues they're having on a corporate level in cinemas now. But when it comes to physical media, what I'm talking about in preservation of our history, it is a kick to the gut for me when they just frivolously throw something out there and they're just like, whatever, we're not going to fix it. And people are like, well, why you guys care? We have this, we have that. Why? Reason I care and why I hope most of our community cares is because this is probably the last time 90 or more percent of these movies are ever going to be touched again, are ever going to be given this kind of treatment, are ever going to have the original negatives scanned in at any kind of high resolution. Because we've hit a point where there's not much farther you can go with what they are.
Yeah, right? And it's funny. I hear people talking about how, oh yeah, but there'll be, you know, like an 8K disc, you know, the next 8K disc or whatever. There's not going to be an 8K disc. There just won't be an 8K disc. Because first of all, most people can't even see the difference between Blu-ray and 4K, right?
And some of these movies are already being scanned in 6 and 8K. It just doesn't matter.
We've hit kind of a limit, and also the studios. There's just nobody at the studios who's going like, okay, we should be thinking about the next 8K and 16K disc, and it's like, no, this is it. It's Blu-ray and 4K, and this is, you know, and it's as long as these things last, and everything after that's going to be digital for a lot of reasons. But it's you know, but
and for that very reason too, because you're hitting the threshold of what digital can handle as far as streaming wise too, because any of you guys out there know you can stream something in 4K and it looks maybe as good as your standard Blu-ray. You throw in the 4K of that, the difference is still night and day in some cases, right?
Right. Yeah. The disc is almost always going to be the better version because it's less compressed, right? So, and you get deeper color and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, we've kind of hit the end of it in terms of physical media and in terms of the format. So the idea is to get Blu-ray and 4K to last as long as we can get them to last. And you know, and then the future is probably the future is inevitably digital. It's just a matter of how soon that final switchover happens. And I'm hoping it's going to be, you know, through the end of the decade at least.
Well, I ain't switching over until I'm allowed to download my movie in full, and I'm not kidding. I know you know I'm serious because like you're not taking this out of my hands.
Exactly. Same here, right? It's like you said, I feel like we as physical media collectors are preserving film history more than the studios ever are. So
for sure, and it's also important to point out that a lot of the profit historically, the profit that's been made from physical media is the very money that gets put right back into film restoration at the studios. So, you know, it's really true that like, if not for DVD, if not for the success of DVD, there are a lot of films that we all love that would probably have been lost or certainly would have languished and deteriorated more than they have, if not for the success of DVD. It really does make a difference. That's where the money to preserve this stuff comes from. And you'd think that like the mentality should be like, okay, if we're going to do digital, then we should be preserving all of this stuff and uploading it, right? But they're not. It's weird how so many titles are just not available digitally that should be, right? And yet we're getting these amazing things on disc, and it's like, okay, man, let's get as many discs as we can.
Yeah.
Well, and I owe you I don't know if I'd call it an apology, because I mean I don't think but this is something Boba Fett and you and I don't even know if you remember this conversation. This is where I was refusing to accept 4K when we first started talking.
That's funny.
And this is the reason why. Because at that point, most of the movies that were out on 4K were modern films.
Yeah.
And what older films were out there, a lot of them had been 4K transfers from an interpositive or a lesser quality print. And I'm sitting here going, I don't see a difference. I don't, and especially if I'm watching something that's mastered in 2K. Now, I will say this. Since then, I've clearly come around.
Yes. You
And not
realized
only that,
you realized you were wrong.
I realized I was wrong, but there's even been, and Greg is my witness. Just this, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I had an experience where I can't believe that a 2K master looks better in 4K than it does on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's sitting right here, actually.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what the reason why is.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, totally. And I'll tell you the reason why. One, because upsampling has gotten a lot better, right?
Yeah.
Upsampling has gotten a lot
Plus, you're getting the uncompressed file. That's the other part.
That's exactly right. And because production color, people don't realize production color in Hollywood, in like the post-production pipeline, which is generally 4K now for most films and stuff, happens in like 16-bit color. So, and what we get on 4K is 10-bit. If it's Dolby Vision, it's 12-bit, right? Blu-ray is only 8-bit. So you're getting double the color depth you potentially, in terms of what they do in Hollywood from what you see on Blu-ray. So if you can tap into that extra color depth, that means, better, more accurate color. That means more dimensionality in the image. It means it's less compressed, right? It absolutely makes a difference. And another title that's a perfect example of that is Game of Thrones season 1 in 4K. Now that show was finished in HD resolution, but it was shot with deeper color, right? So it was shot it was uncompressed and deeper color. So when they put it out in 4K, they upsampled it. They tapped into all of that extra bit depth. And my God, like if you go compare the Blu-ray of season 1 to the 4K, it's like you'll see the difference. And it frankly shocked me how it's such a difference.
Now, there are some still that I will say that, not to be like, oh, well, I was kind of right, but no, there's still some that with the 2K interpositive, just like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah.
My 3D version I'll watch any day over the 4K because it looks smudgy and just
Some films,
and same with Spider-Man No Way Home. I was really let down by it because I'm like, it looks so dingy. I just don't get it.
Yeah, some of that is the fact that Disney, when they put those 4Ks out, they only put them out on 66 gig discs rather than 100, and so they compressed it a little too much. Now, if you have Kaleidoscape, which is a super high-end streaming, like you can actually download the files and everything. I think was it Guardians of the Galaxy, or maybe it's Avengers Age of Ultron or Avengers Endgame. The disc file is like 50 or it's like 66 gigabytes. But the Kaleidoscape download is like 100.
Somebody was saying something like that. Yeah,
it's like wow, like so they could have done it better, and that's a weird like studio to studio thing that you just like
Disney's been doing that too, and well, not to nag too much on Warner Brothers, but they did the same kind of thing recently with the Superman Fleischer cartoons, and you were the one who brought that to light.
Yeah.
And I mean, once I saw the disc, I knew exactly what you were talking about. Like, something right here.
The thing of it is and that was just a dumb mistake that somebody at Warner Brothers made. That then they doubled down on and said, "Oh, well, that wasn't a mistake at all, and that's just your opinion," and which made me mad. But like, if you look at the Warner Archive discs, those Warner Archive discs have high bit rate. I mean, every one of them is phenomenal. But then you look at the Fleischer Superman Blu-ray, and it's like, it taps out at like 15 megabits per second. 15 megabits per second isn't even streaming quality. That's streaming quality is 20. Quality is at least 20, right? And it's like, so it just like, oh my God, how could you do that on a title that important and not acknowledge it and not fix it? And I presume that somebody was afraid for their job. I don't know what it was, but it just made me mad. I waited for that title for so many years on Blu-ray.
I know,
me too. Just absolutely messed it up and didn't bother to fix it. It's like,
no, I don't know if you've heard anything new about it. I mean, we talked a little bit about behind the scenes, but I mean, are they going to maybe do a 4K of that? Do you think maybe?
I hope so. Because that would go a long way to correcting it. Maybe they could do a 4K and it would look. That's a title. It should be in 4K and it would be amazing. The color would. Oh, can you imagine the color from the Fleischer Supermans?
I mean, I was like not so sure about animation on 4K, but there was a title that changed my mind, and that was Heavy Metal.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, night and day. Yeah. And then Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. I haven't watched the movie all the way through, but just skimming
Yeah.
through it, I'm like, oh gosh, this looks amazing. Now, if we can
Yeah.
get, yeah, I mean, I don't
The
expect
Fleischer
them to
Superman.
redo
Look, the Fleischer
Batman like that,
Superman.
but Fleischer would be nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Fleischer Superman is one of the most important animated titles that's ever been done. I mean, next to the Tex Avery stuff and the old Looney Tunes and the old Disney stuff, like that's a really, really important and influential title, and that belongs in 4K. Like there should absolutely be a 4K release of that. But it's just the fact that they just put out the DVD and the DVD looks so terrible and they didn't acknowledge it or fix it that made me so mad. Man, I was hot under the collar, but I'm still hot under the collar about that. Because that's something they should have acknowledged the mistake and fixed it.
I agree. Hitchhiker 42 says Abyss should be 4K release only to promote 4K. What do you think of this? This is an interesting point. I see where he's coming from with this.
Yeah, I get the point, but it's like, look, the goal is to get as many of these kind of movies remastered and released in 4K as possible, and obviously there's a lot of demand because that movie never hit Blu-ray. And so there's a lot of I want, when the studios release these titles, I want them to make all the money they can possibly make, because the more often that happens, the more likely we are going to be able to get the next one.
Yep.
So that's my attitude. I mean, I'm all for the studios making bank on this stuff, because if they do, then they'll go, oh, let's release 100 more of these movies in 4K. That's what I want.
Yep. And some of these, like you just said, have never been on either DVD or Blu-ray for that matter. So
yeah.
And again,
True Lies, yeah.
45% of the market or whatever it is, more than that actually, I think it's still DVD, right?
Right.
So or actually a lot more than that, I think. That was just the sales for Walmart. I'm forgetting my numbers. We got some numbers jumping around.
DVD still, especially internationally, it still dominates, and even in the States,
it's over 50%. Yeah,
for sure. So, I just want as many great films to be released on these high quality formats as possible, in the highest possible quality. So even if it's like I'm all for, people go, oh, they're just going to double dip us again. Look, man. If technology improves in 5 years and that means we can get an even better looking Lawrence of Arabia in 4K, then I'm all for it.
It depends on the dip.
It depends on the
title. All depends on how they do it. Now,
yes.
I hate saying this. I'll call the ones out where I see them. Shout Factory is probably the worst for putting out a movie. And really, it's our own fault, too, because we should know if it's got a 4K scan, chances are they're going to drop a 4K scan a year down the road.
Right.
But also... But Kino at least will generally try to do extra to it when they re-release something. That's
at the same time. At the same time, but it is important to know that, for collectors to know, especially, that sometimes the decision as to whether or not to do a 4K depends on how well the Blu-ray sells.
Yeah,
because
sometimes it's up to the studio too. I've been told. Yeah,
sometimes it's up to the studio, and it's also like, look, these indie distributors. It might be like a renaissance of all these little indie companies, these boutique labels, but they're operating with really tight margins. And there are some titles where they go, we just don't know if it would be profitable to do this title on Blu-ray. So some of them will or on 4K. So some of them will test the waters with Blu-ray. And if it sells well, then they know, okay, we can probably sell a 4K too and make a profit on that. So I know it's frustrating, but it is somehow, it's how some of these little indie labels and some of these studios, frankly, get the confidence to do a 4K. Is by looking at what the Blu-ray does. Like, and another example is Paramount. Paramount, there are like 30 or 40 films that are available in 4K digital from Paramount that are not available in 4K disc. And what Paramount does is they put these things out in 4K digital and see how well they do, and then they go, okay, a couple of these we can, a few of these we can definitely do 4K disc too. So it might be frustrating, but like again, my attitude is, look, if that's what it takes to convince them, I get it. Like I want all these films in 4K, man. I want them all looking as good as possible. And it is a tough market. It is not, we are not in the golden age of discs anymore. It's not like it used to be. Every one of these titles is a risk for these companies, especially these smaller boutique labels.
Yeah. And something I know, like I said, I know that, is that they are kind of at the, also at the mercy of the studios, and Duck Nation brings this point up here. Kino remastered Monk TV show in 4K, but only releasing it in 1080p. Now, I don't know if this is the case, but just talking to people, Duck Nation, this is just my speculation on this. Kino probably got the deal. They probably paid for the 4K master so they could get the 1080p release of it. But that was the deal that they probably made with, I think, who was it, Universal TV or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
then Universal's going to use the 4K master for their streaming service, probably. Will
probably.
we ever
Yeah,
get a 4K disc release of that? Not likely.
Yeah.
not likely. Yeah, not likely. But
You never
like
know.
never
If the
say
Blu-ray
never.
sells good,
Right. And good for Kino, right? Good for Kino for doing that, because at least that means that show gets some love. At least we know that it's gotten restored in 4K. It's like, it all helps. It all helps preserve this content and make it available in the future. So
that's what I've learned, though. It's a lot of like, we'll do this for you if we get this kind of a deal.
yeah,
And you'd be surprised because, as you were saying, Bill, like the restoration prices, just the price alone, because Robert had talked to us about this, and I know the price has gone down a little bit since the back of the day, but like it's still quite a bit to get a movie scanned, to do all the digital
yeah,
work to it, to get everything
yeah,
done. And when you're talking about a TV show, that's a
yeah,
lot. I
yeah.
mean, like
And it
Robert has talked extensively about his experience on Star Trek that took years to put together, for instance.
For sure. And it takes a lot of man hours, right? It's a lot of human beings sitting in front of a computer looking at a screen going, is the color right here? Is the color right here? And they have to tweak it
Searching
frame
for
by
scenes
frame.
and shots you can't find and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. It is very labor intensive, these processes still. I mean, even the AI restorations are still require somebody to come in, and because something will get screwed up. It's tricky for sure.
And then we got one more super chat from ActionCom, who sends a very generous $10 in and says, "What's the future of independent films that used to be filler for video stores? They seem to have found home on Tubi for now, but I would love to own some of those crime thrillers and horror films."
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of those sort of indie films, a lot of the indie films, B titles, those used to go direct to video stores, or they would go to independent cinemas. Now they all tend to go to streaming services. So, I don't know. Hopefully they maybe will go, okay, we could probably release a disc as well.
Well, I know some of those. I actually know some of the directors who do those films for like the newer like horror films for Tubi and stuff. They will put those out on Blu-ray because they like crowdfund to get funds.
Yeah.
So like typically that's where the Blu-rays are, or they'll sell them on their own little stores.
Yeah.
So if you want like a Blu-ray of those, that's where you got to go to get those.
Right. But that also depends on whether or not the company that they're making a deal with allows them to do that, right?
That's
So
true.
they might get a distribution deal and like, okay, we want to sell some on Kickstarter, and you guys can have the story, right? It's tricky, and
it is very tricky.
yeah. It's
I know, like some of the ones for like Netflix, for instance, they do them and then they have to wait a certain period of time and then they can release.
right.
The
Like
disc.
I just reviewed today. So one of my favorite shows right now is For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus, and obviously it's in 4K with HDR on Apple TV Plus. Well, Dazzler in May released season 1 on the UK and on Blu-ray, and then just on the 14th, Sony's actually releasing it here in the States on Blu-ray. And it's there's no 4K because I think probably Apple said no, we don't. You can do Blu-ray but not 4K. It doesn't even have the same branding as it does on Apple TV Plus. The logos, all of that stuff, it's completely different on the Blu-ray. It looks like a bootleg almost, because I'm sure Apple was like, well, I don't want physical media. We don't want physical media competing with our streaming offering. But yeah, like at least that title is coming out on Blu-ray, and I hope at some point Sony releases a 4K box set eventually when the show is done or whatever. But I love that show, and I'm really glad to have it at least on Blu-ray.
So I think the quickest answer is it's all down to licensing, how these deals are made.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like Greg said, you just gotta, if you find something you love, just kind of seek it out and see if it's gotten a release.
Yeah.
Yep.
You never know what you can find.
And the interesting thing too is some titles that don't get a release here in the States do get released internationally sometimes, and so occasionally you can find on Amazon UK, Amazon France, Amazon Germany, CD Japan.
A region free player can be your best friend. Yes.
It sure can. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the great thing is 4K. Most 4K discs to this point have been region free.
Yeah.
So that's
99% for sure. And so what you really have to do is you just have to make sure that the language options on the disc are what you need them to be.
Hitchhiker 42 asks, could B5 sales on Blu-ray make DS9 Blu-ray happen? Now this is a complicated question.
Oh, this is a situation where I have to be very careful what I say too, because
Yes.
there's a lot I know that I can't talk about. I was on the Inglorious Treksperts podcast a couple months ago, and we talked about all this stuff, the future of Star Trek on physical media, because there's obviously Deep Space Nine, there is Voyager that hasn't been released on Blu-ray yet. I think patience will be rewarded on this front, and that's about all I can say. But I think patience will be rewarded in terms of Blu-ray for those titles.
But logistically, I guess we could say that there are a few hurdles that have to be
Yes.
overcome first. I know you could probably at least talk about that because of the way DS9 was shot.
Yeah. Well, so DS9 and Voyager. So for the next generation, a lot of the visual effects, especially the spacecraft footage, was all shot on film. Right, it was all shot on film. But when you get into the tail end of it of the next generation and then into Deep Space Nine and Voyager, that's when the visual effects really started to shift into digital. So one of the big hurdles was, do all of those original visual effect shots, the digital files, still exist? And if they do, then can they be updated with newer, more high resolution models of those same ships? So could you rebuild those shots? And the answer is yes, but it takes a lot of work. You don't want to just upsample, right? You want to really have native, 4K, HD and 4K. And at this point, it would be done in 4K. So the answer is, which I was able to help kind of answer years ago, the answer is yes, it can be done, but it is an expensive process and it takes a lot of time. But between then and now, there have been a lot of innovations that have made it even more possible. And I really can't go much farther in saying anything beyond that, but I can tell you pretty confidently that I think patience will be rewarded for Deep Space Nine and Voyager. I think patience will be rewarded.
All right. Well, thanks for that. And we are caught up on the questions. I don't know how much time you have left.
Greg,
with you.
Greg, we can talk for a few more minutes. Greg, I'll
Sure.
get you in here.
Yeah, you got any questions for Bill since you've been really quiet?
Oh,
Greg?
let me see. Let me think, because you guys really did discuss that, because I like the whole thing with the streaming. You guys talk about how all these studios have focused all on streaming and digital and have hired these people that are not film related to do all this digital and streaming stuff. And then we're here sitting here talking about how money can be made with physical media. It's valuable. I see it's still valuable. It's still making money. And I mean, when you got Walmart looking to buy into a stake with SDS to sell physical media, that tells you that there is a market. Why these studios can't see that, I can't get that through my head.
Well, it's interesting because I think now they are starting to see it a little bit more, because clearly during the pandemic, the theatrical business was crushed. Mm-hmm. And the theatrical business was crushed by the pandemic, but I think the theatrical business is also being crushed by the fact that the studios have been making a lot of mediocre movies.
Yes.
They've tapped out these big blockbuster franchises. They've gone to the well too many times and made mediocre movies in the process of going to the well too many times. Right. So I think franchise fatigue is real. I mean, I think that explains why, Oppenheimer and Barbie did so well. I mean, in the Super Mario Brothers movie, even though it's not really my thing, it's something kind of new. And I think, I think franchise fatigue is real right now.
Yeah.
And then so there's three, ways these studios make money. There's theatrical, there's streaming, and then there's physical media. Well, and obviously the streaming business has really been, nobody's making profit on streaming.
Right.
It's just
losing money.
Right. So I think in that kind of a climate, a lot of these studio executives are looking back at physical media and going, oh shit, like these guys are in the black every year. How are they in the black? And where everyone else is getting crushed. Maybe we should, be giving them a little more love. And so I think you're seeing that a little bit. I think Paramount certainly has proved that. I think Disney is starting to see the light. I hope so. We'll see. But I think physical media can still be a very bright spot for the studio balance sheet.
It's just like, if you could just get them, listen, license out this title, like you used to do. I mean, it's like even when Matt Damon was talking about it, it's like back in the 90s, we used to be able to have, the physical media release, and that would make an extra form of money, and then we'd license it out. And it's like, you guys can still do that and still do your digital and streaming. You can still license, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, I
Well,
don't
that's the
get
thing
it.
that's the thing. The way to think about this stuff is, look, digital takes over the rental business. Sales should still be physical media. And then you could do
Exactly.
digital sales too, but if you think of it that way, they can complement each other, and they can complement each other for a long time. But what
Streaming can be like cable, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I
right.
see there's a compromise in there. It's just they haven't figured it out. That's what I keep saying is like there's got to be a way for physical and digital and streaming to all mix together
Yeah.
in a way, and it's just like nobody's seeing it
Well,
at the
they've killed
moment.
the lifespan of a movie, really, because it used
Right.
to be a movie would come out, it would sit in theaters for 6 months to a year, depending on how popular it was. Then 6 months or so after that, you get the home video release. Then
Yeah.
6 months or so after that, or a year after its release, it would start hitting
Mhm.
cable and all that. And then you even had video on demand, the old school version of it back in between there too. And then
Right.
it would hit cable after a year. And then 2 years later, you'd have your network premiere. Each one of those things was a big revenue stream for the studios. Now they've cut most
Yeah.
of those out. They've created their own streaming service, so they're throwing their movies directly onto streaming. Here's a great example. Movie I watched this last week, I enjoyed quite a bit. Haunting in Venice, the
Mhm.
third film in the Agatha Christie series that Branagh's done. They put it on video on demand in 4K. It's not getting a 4K release, it's getting only a Blu-ray release, even though it was shot in 4K and finished in 4K and IMAX, all that business.
Yeah.
They ended up dropping it on Hulu at the same time as on video on demand. So now how have they've killed a lot of their digital momentum sales.
Yep.
They've killed a lot of their physical momentum sales.
Yeah.
And I'm upset because I'm a collector. I've got the first two films in 4K. Branagh's known for his lavish, you know, productions. Why is
Yeah.
this not getting a 4K release?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that they'll look and see and realize, oh, maybe there is demand for this after all. Like maybe all of those other things will be strong enough that they'll realize, oh, maybe we should come back and do a 4K of this at some point. But you're right, that should have been a no-brainer. Like
well, and
I
then
just
putting
don't.
it out that way just kind of doesn't make sense monetarily, right? Like
Yeah.
you're killing your future sales.
Exactly. There should be like something like leave them in the theaters longer, then make a big deal when they come out on video on demand so you can
Yeah.
buy it, and then make it like they like Tom talked about like in a big cable days, make a big deal like, oh, this is coming to Hulu this month for the first time ever, you know,
Yeah.
and then physical. It's just there's got to be some kind of compromise given in there
I
somewhere.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mecha J
Absolutely.
says or asks, do you see AI as a useful tool for physical media? I'm not a big fan of AI
Yeah.
I mean,
or up
AI.
converts, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, AI is there's a lot of reasons to be concerned about AI, and that's a whole other conversation. But I think some AI things can be very helpful in like post production and restoration. And I think AI tools can be very helpful. And I think someone like James Cameron is really pioneering a lot of that. AI remastering. I'll tell you what, AI upsampling, that sort of machine learning upsampling is just off the hook. It's crazy how good that's gotten, and it's getting
I
even
have to
better.
see it to believe it, but
Oh
yeah.
my God. Let me tell you something.
I'm not
Because
a fan of that.
but it's a specific use case that calls for it, right? But it can be very, very good. It can be very, very good. And I think my personal feeling is I think the future of AI is going to be the kind of a thing where, 50 years from now, 60 years from now, you're at work and you go, you're thinking like, when I get home, I think I want to watch a movie. I want to watch a Western. And so you call up your AI assistant and say, hey, I want to watch a movie when I get home tonight, a Western movie with starring John Wayne, Tom Cruise, and me and my best friend Bob.
It's funny, I've brought these things up before too.
And
Yeah.
you'll go and it'll go, okay, it'll be ready when you get home. And then you do the rest of your work day and you stop on the way home, grab a pizza or whatever, get home. And when you get there, that movie is ready. It's there and ready for you to watch. That's the future, the far future.
You might be right on that. I mean, and as far as like actually using it for like upscaling and stuff, though, I'm curious what you feel about that. I think the only place it might be most useful, or I think it looks okay, is when you use it for animation that's stuck in like a video form.
Yeah.
Seems to benefit okay because there's not as much complicated things that it has to
Let
do.
me tell you something.
But yeah, other than that, I don't know. It's kind of
Anything you've seen so far, it pales in comparison to what's coming. These
Oh, I admit,
tools,
yeah.
these tools are getting better and better, and they're getting better at a rate that is scary. I mean, one thing I've noticed over since I've been doing this for 26 years now, what I've noticed is about every 3 or 4 years, there would be some new leap in scanning technology, in digital post-production technology, so a transfer done 5 years ago, a transfer done today is significantly better than one done 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that continues, and I've seen that again and again and again. So and AI is only moving at a faster rate. AI is moving at an exponential rate. I mean, AI technology is really, like, people don't understand the exponent. Like, this stuff is getting better and better and better and faster and faster and faster. And it's good. The future's going to be weird. Let's put it that way. The future's going to be weird.
Pinochet's Helicopter Tours says, "Don't tell, but I've taken over the world with Tom AI." Well, you're not supposed to tell anybody that I'm an AI. No. In some respects, I don't see it as a problem, and especially with certain ways it's being utilized. But I mean, there's even kind of a misconception in some things. Like, I don't know if you're a Beatles fan or not, but the new Beatles song that just come out, I
Yeah.
feel like there's a big problem with people hearing, "Oh, they used AI to do that." So that instantly your brain goes to, "Oh, they used a machine to create it." It's like, no, 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 no.
Right.
You have to
Right.
explain to people that what they did is they used a technology that I
Yeah.
think is really going to be leaps and bounds for sound going forward.
Yes.
That Peter
Basically
Jackson
what they
was
did was they
ahead.
went.
Yeah.
It's the same thing they did with the Beatles Get Back, right? So what they did was the Beatles Get Back was all shot on 16 millimeter film back in the day, right?
Yep.
And they recorded all the audio on Nagra audio tape. And so what they were able to do in terms of audio with the sound on those tapes is they were able to digitize the tape, and then they were able to use AI to isolate the voices of each of the individual band members and their instruments. And so basically, because those things were all muddied together,
Married
right?
together, basically.
Everything all on top of each other, and so you couldn't hear anything very clearly. What they were able to do is isolate just John Lennon's voice out and make it so that it's perfect. It is him singing, but it's perfect, and it's only him, and you don't hear anything else going on. And they were able to isolate each of those guys and their instruments out. And then once they've got those on separate tracks, then they can do a proper mix, and just as you would if you had recorded them all separately. That's what they did with for this new song, the Now
Yep.
and Then. Because John Lennon had recorded that song just on a cassette tape, sitting at a piano doing a demo. He just recorded the demo, but the audio quality on that tape, it was not good, and you could hear room noise, and you could hear his piano, and you could hear all this other stuff. So they just isolated his voice out of that so that they could then use that as one track in a larger mix.
Yep.
And then John Harrison, apparently they tried to do this. They tried to finish this film first in 1995 for the Beatles anthology, right? So John Harrison, before he died, he did record a guitar part, and Ringo recorded his drums, and so it's just only now they've got the technology to really make that all clean and remix it properly so that it actually sounds like a proper track.
Yeah,
so they didn't generate artificially, like, simulated John Harrison or John Lennon's voice. That's not what that is.
And that's what I would like to differentiate here between an AI doing something like that compared to creating something or upconverting something. Because Ben Burt used that same technology, to my understanding, to do the 5.1 sound mix for War of the Worlds, which I'm sure you've heard, and is amazing, because
it's amazing.
That's one of the first times where we've actually been able to do a sound mix made up of all sounds that were native to the track. Because a big complaint a lot of us fans had was when they took, like, Batman and Superman and some of these other movies, and since they either were just lazy and didn't want to go find those original sound sources, or they didn't have the original track to work from, or separated at that time, they couldn't make a new track, so they just threw in new sound effects.
Right. Some of the sound effects were so obvious. It was like the Windows like maximize sound or whatever. It's just so dumb. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's things that we're used to, because to us, this is like a song, right?
Right.
Speaking of music, we watch a movie, it's a married thing in our brain, and when we don't hear something sounding right, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Right.
And you're not going to get that past too many people. So I'm glad that we have this technology, and hopefully it's being used in the right way. And that's a very exciting thing for the future. I did grab one or two other, I thought, interesting questions before you run here.
Yeah, totally.
On the whole thing of Monk, Coffee Lover says, I do wish Monk would have been available in one set as opposed to individual season releases. Now, I got to imagine this is probably down to the studio, probably what they allow them to do.
It could be down to the studio, and it could also
Right.
be the Kino Lorber Studio Classics has got to be sure that, like, okay, do we sell enough copies of season one that we're confident to do season two as well,
Right.
right? Because if they did it in one big box set, there are a lot of people who might go, it's just a little too pricey, and will hold back. Whereas if they do it a season at a time, they can be a little more confident about doing that. Because that's look, I mean, one of the reasons why Deep Space Nine and Voyager remastered didn't happen was because the Next Generation, they when they did each of those seasons and they released them like every 3 or 4 months, they would drop a new season on Blu-ray. But a lot of people said, oh, $120 a season every 3 months is too much, right? So by the time they got to like season 6, 7, and 8, they only sold like less than 5,000 copies of those worldwide, because a lot of people, their wallets couldn't handle the thing. But then even more importantly, a lot of people said, well, why am I buying these things for $120 a season when I can just wait 3 years and I'll be able to buy the entire series for $75, right? And there'll be some exclusive bonus disc in that set that I'll miss out on if I do it right.
Right.
And so a lot of people said, I'll just wait and I'll just buy the complete series when it's done. And because a lot of people did that, Paramount said and CBS Digital said, well, I guess people don't want to buy this. So this will be it. This will be it. We'll just be done with this. And then they did indeed sell it as a complete series later. But the message they took from people holding back was, I guess people don't want to buy Deep Space Nine and Voyager.
Yeah. Well,
That's unfortunately the catch-22.
Yeah, hopefully things will. I think the studios have learned a little bit, because I've noticed a lot of times now they'll just straight up release a whole series instead of even bothering with the seasons anymore.
But unfortunately, a lot of what happens too is they'll release season 1 and season 2, and then you go, "Where's season 3?" And then they just decide, nobody's
Because they
buying
didn't
them.
sell. Yeah.
Right.
Jen has a good question here. Where else can you get physical media besides the big conglomerates like Walmart and Amazon? Well, there's a few different boutique places you can go directly to, right? Like Kino, Vinegar Syndrome, for instance. I
Diabolic
know. I was
DVD,
just gonna
Shot
say
Factory.
Diabolic,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Shot Factory's got their own website. A lot of the indie distributors have their own little boutique shops where you can go online and you can buy stuff direct, and sometimes you get exclusive content or swag or whatever. But then there's also, there's Diabolic DVD. There's lots of sort of little indie retailers
Orbit
too.
DVD.
Right.
Yeah.
Groove actually is Universal's direct sell through, and they handle like Warner Brothers and Universal and other titles besides that. So if you don't want to go directly to that kind of a place like Walmart or Amazon, there's those other options out there too. Target still does
Yeah, Target
as
still
well.
does some. That's true. Yeah. So there are definitely ways. I mean, it's mostly online. I mean, the bottom line is, unless you're really lucky enough to have a great like indie video retailer / record store, like I'm sure we all do miss like video like Tower Records, because Tower Records used to have a great big DVD Blu-ray section too,
Or
right?
Suncoast, or
Suncoast,
Yeah.
exactly.
which is basically I think a conglomerate of theirs or whatever. But like, yeah, like
Right.
no, and even if if you're lucky, if you got like a local record store or comic book shop, maybe kind of get in their ear, be like, guess what? Best Buy's getting out of discs. Maybe you guys should think
Yeah.
about getting a little, Blu-ray DVD section. Help out a local business. Tell them I'll come buy all the new movies that come out as far as the studio releases. There you
Right.
go.
But there are a lot of places. There are still a lot of places online to buy
Oh,
discs
absolutely.
from.
But I know some people just want to go out and buy them too.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
with that, I'm going to let you go, because we've had you for 90 minutes, and I don't want to take any more of your time, because I know you're a very busy man, and I hope that you get to come back again soon.
Yeah, I'd
We
love
love
to.
having you on here, and we love picking your brain and hearing the
Totally.
new news and stuff that's going on, and the digital bits. Of course, you can check out every day of the week. Pretty much, you do new news except for I think on the weekends, basically. And
Yep. And we launched a Patreon recently, and we're also on social media, on Facebook and on X now, I guess. So and in Saturday, the weekends are a lot easier for me to jump on too. So I'm a lot more free to come on the weekends, so we can do this more often. But Greg, it was nice meeting you. I'm looking forward to. I'll have to check out your channel, and we'll have to be able to have a little bit more of a conversation where I'm not dominating.
I'm usually the quiet guy.
Well,
anyway.
normal show pretty much just goes. We talk about what other the new news is, what we watched that week, if there's something going on. But like, having you for the first time, we definitely wanted to give you the the whole showcase. But
well, very
here's your
kind of you guys.
Patreon here. Do you guys check that out? I know you do some exclusive stuff over there, isn't that right?
Yeah, so we do every weekday we have new content going up on the digitalbits.com, and even like sometimes on the weekends I just posted a review today. So digitalbits.com, and then obviously we've got our Patreon, and then we're also on I'm at Bill Hunt Bits on Twitter and Facebook, and then we have at the Digital Bits on Facebook and Twitter as well. So yep, we're out there. So I appreciate it. Thanks. I'm glad everybody thanks for listening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, which I want to thank Mr. Tickle Trunk for sharing all those throughout the show, so you guys can check them out. And yeah, one thing I will say, because this is a question I get a lot of times, and I send them your way, because your guys' reviews are one of the only few that do this, and that is when I ask, well, is this going to be on it? Is that going to be on it? It's like, if you want to know, go to the Digital Bits, because those guys will sit there and tell you everything that was on this release and everything that's missing from this release or that's been added. So that is
I try really hard. Yeah, that's a point that I made a long time ago, with even in the DVD days, to if there's a new version, what carries over, what's new, what's not on there that you might, so if you buy this new one, you can get rid of this copy, but you have to keep this copy because it's got an exclusive that's not on here. That's important, right? That's important to me. I want to know that, right? So I figured if I want to know it, there are probably a lot of other people out there to do too. So all of our guys now, whenever we review a title like that, that's one of the first things we do is because between all of us on staff at the Bits, like I've probably got it sitting on my shelf, the older version, or one of the other guys has got it, and we can do that. So,
and that's what I love, because that's probably one of the number one things I get asked, besides specifically, when is Abyss or True Lies coming out, just like you do. So like, I just want to say, check out the Digital Bits, not just for the news, but for the resource. If you're going to buy a movie and you want to know, is this documentary on there? Is the music video on there? Is the trailer on there? Is the commentary being carried over? Is it whatever you want to know? They have it categorized there, and they have almost every movie you can think of that's been reviewed since day one of DVD on there. So.
Well, and the thing of it is, and this is the point that I don't make often enough, there's literally nobody covering DVD and Blu-ray and 4K who's been doing this longer than we have.
Nope.
I mean, there's nobody left. The Bits was like one of the very first sites to start doing this, and like nobody else has left from those early days, basically, other than a couple of discussion forums. So the Bits is definitely the oldest, longest lived, and a lot of other great websites have dropped off all over the years, but we were first, and we've broken a lot of news, and we're still keeping at it, and we're trying to keep it going as long as we can, man. As long as there's discs to cover, we want to keep going. And because we've been doing it for so long, we've gained a lot of the trust within the industry. So you know, I can pick up a phone and talk to the studio executives at like all these studios, and if there's a question that needs to be answered, I can send an email or a text, and I can get an answer usually, which is useful. So,
well, you're usually the first person I bother.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad to have all you guys.
Anybody knows, you do. So, all right, man. Well, hopefully we see you again real soon, and thank you for being here. Greg, anything to say before we get out of here?
No, it's really great just listening to him. It's much like Robert Meyer Burnett. I just sat back and I just enjoy listening to you talk. It's like that's all I can say.
That's very kind of you to say. It's good being on here with you guys. And yeah, Rob and I have known each other for
we'll have to get you guys on together
years and years. So Rob and I talk like
you guys talk all the time, but I mean we haven't had
all the time
together on our channel in a while. But
totally.
No, I'm glad all the things I learned today. When I learn things, we play this. No more Tom knows.
That's great. Nice.
So with that, thank you so much, guys. Check out the Digital Bits and their Patreon. See you on the next show. Take care of yourselves.
Take care, guys.
Exit button here.